We both got it. All right, you guys ready? All right. Hello, my name is Devin Jones, and thank you for joining me. I am the program director for the Cleveland Observer. And today, on the first episode of the Cleveland Observer podcast, we have two highly esteemed guests. We have the incumbent office of State Board of Election, Meryl Johnson, and we have the CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. It is such a pleasure to be with you both. I will open the room to you both to have a wonderful discussion, and I'll be back momentarily.
All right.
Thanks, Devon.
Good morning, everyone. Just a little correction. Devon Jones said State Board of Elections. I am a member of the State Board of Education, District 11. That covers 2/3 of Cuyahoga County and 1/3 of Lake County. I represent 24 school districts. And just a little bit about myself. I taught school in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District for 40 years. And I'm always so proud to say that. I was elected to the State Board of Education in November 2016. And I am again on the ballot running for my second term, as you can see by my sign. So I'm hoping I will have your support, but enough about me. I'm so happy to be able to interview the CEO / superintendent of the Cleveland Metropolitan Schools. Eric is, he's just a good guy. I've known him for as long as he's been here. And, of course, me being a teacher, him being the CEO, we've had some disagreements, but it's really been a very positive relationship. And so I'm so happy to be able to interview Eric this morning. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here. Oh, we have an echo.
I don't hear it on my side. You hear it on your side? You hear it?
I do, but it's okay if you're not hearing it, and it's gone now. So I think we're good.
Okay.
Good
Great,
to see you,
great.
Mel.
Good to see you. So I decided that I would start off kind of light and then get deeper and heavier as we move on. And
Okay.
so I looked up some conversation starters. I thought these were really cool questions just to start off with. And I'm going to answer them too. So
Okay.
we can have a back and forth. So the first question is, if you could have dinner with anyone living or not living, who would it be and why? And please make it someone that we've heard of. Don't say your great grandma or anything like that. So if you could have dinner with anyone living or not living, who would it be and why?
Well, not to jump right into politics, because I very rarely do that, but it would be Michelle and Barack Obama.
Okay.
I actually got to meet the president in the Oval Office as part of my duties for this job in the Council of Great City Schools. And I just admire them, regardless of politics. I just admire them. I admire the way they lead, both of them, the way they carry themselves, their presence. So I would love to just have an opportunity to sit down and have a meal and get to know them as people, and learn the rest of the story. Again, regardless of politics. How about you?
I first of all, I love your answer. I'm like, oh, maybe I should have done that one. But but my answer
Yours is me, right?
But mine is Harriet Tubman.
Oh.
I admire her courage so much. She accomplished so much with so little. During a time where the expectations of people of color were very low or really non-existent. And she just decided she was going to find some freedom. And then she decided that she was going to bring some folks with her. A lot of people would have just gone on and said, I'm free, I'm happy, and so be it. But she said, no, I've got to take care of some other people.
No, that's right. I love it.
I love that about her.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. So next question, this is an easy one. What is one food you could eat for the rest of your life?
Just one? Look at me.
Yep, just one. Just one.
Pizza. I love a good pizza.
Wow. What's your favorite topping?
I like a Hawaiian pizza. And I like it with both
pineapple and the ham and stuff?
pineapple and the ham, but I also like it with onions, and so I like the sweet and the the bite.
Yeah,
I like that balance.
interesting. Mine is macaroni and cheese.
Well, I
I
could go there
just,
too.
I love a good macaroni and cheese, a little crusty top a little bit. I love that.
I make a
Okay,
mean mac and cheese. I might have to have you over for that dinner.
I'm gonna hold you to that, Eric.
All
And
right.
we're gonna have a bunch of witnesses, so you can't back out.
Okay.
Hey, next one. What's one movie you could watch over and over?
Dolores Claiborne, a movie based on the book by Stephen King.
Wow.
And my wife and I do watch it over and over and over. It's just like kind of a go-to movie. Like,
Is
what
it
do we want to
scary?
watch?
Is this? I haven't seen it. Is it scary? Of course, it's
No,
Stephen
it's not
King. Not
scary.
scary?
Not like most Stephen King movies, but it's about a woman, Dolores Claiborne, who's accused of killing the woman that she is a maid for and has been for many years. And it's all because she was accused of killing her husband decades ago. And
Okay, don't
Christopher
tell too much
Plummer,
because I'm gonna watch it.
yeah, I won't give you the end, but Christopher
Okay.
Plummer plays the investigator who
Oh,
is
I love
trying to
him.
seek justice, and Kathy Bates is Dolores Claiborne herself. It's just
Wow.
the great cast. It's a great movie.
I make you a promise that I'm going to find that movie hopefully this week, and
All right,
I'm gonna take a look at it.
let me know
Okay.
what you think.
Yeah, I will. Mine is To Kill a Mockingbird
Oh yeah,
with Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck. Yep.
I always can tell a good movie when I cry at the same moment, even though I know that moment is coming up.
Yep.
And the moment in that movie when I'm getting all choked up just thinking about it. The moment in that movie when Gregory Peck has defended, I think Tom Robinson was his name, and he
Hmm.
gets up to leave the courtroom, and all the African American people in the balcony stand, and I think it's the preacher maybe who tells little Scout, "Stand up, your daddy's leaving." Oh,
Yep.
woo! That moment in that movie, I'm seriously getting teary eyed just now thinking about it. So
So my wife and I were supposed to go to New York to see To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway for her birthday in April, and of course that didn't happen with the
wow.
shutdown. And so for her birthday, I actually created a playbill, and we watched the Gregory Peck version of the movie in place of being able to go see the play.
Oh, how nice! You're a good husband.
I have to be. She's got it. I got to do everything to get her to keep me because I'm never home. So when I'm home, I got to make it work.
You have to make those moments very special when you get to be at home.
That's
Wow,
right.
that's nice. But I would have loved to have gone to New York to see that one. That and I think the lead didn't he got the Tony I think for
Oh,
for
did he?
the lead.
I honestly
I
didn't follow.
I
I've kind of
think
lost track of the world as I've been managing
yeah
coronavirus for the
yeah
district.
I think he might have gotten the Tony for that, but I'm not sure.
That's great.
Okay, here's the last the last conversation starter. Who would you swap lives with for a day?
Oh, wow.
And just so the audience knows, I did not give him these questions ahead of time, so that's why he's thinking so long.
Yeah, I'm going to let you go first on this one, and maybe
Okay,
it'll cue me because I've kind of had a loss.
okay. Well, my answer is Jennifer Hudson as Shug Avery in Color Purple on Broadway. First of all, I'm a performer. I've always wanted to be, my bucket list was to be on Broadway one day. I know that's not going to happen probably, uh, but I've always wanted to perform on Broadway. And I love Shug Avery's role in The Color Purple. I love the song she sings and just her role in general. And so I would love to be Jennifer Hudson and Shug Avery for a day.
So mine would be my mom, and the reason is my mom is a classically trained piano player,
Mhm.
and I've always wanted to be a exceptional piano player, and I'm not. I learned don't take lessons from your mother, um, but I would love to just have a day with her hands on her keys of her piano, playing in exactly the way she plays. That would be a real treat for me.
That's nice. It's funny you said don't take lessons from your mom. My mother tried to give my brother and me piano lessons, and it just wouldn't work. So she actually had got us private lessons when I was a little one. So I read music now, thank goodness for that. I mean, thank my mom for that. But that's interesting. She tried to do it because
Yeah.
my mom taught music in the Cleveland schools for
Oh,
26
wow.
years. And matter of fact, when I was teaching at Charles Eliot, we didn't have a music teacher, and my mom came over and volunteered and taught music, and the kids just loved me having my mom there as a music teacher.
That's really cool. My mom, I did try to teach me as well, and I can get through some rudimentary stuff. But we also came to the conclusion that I shouldn't take lessons from my mother. But at the time, didn't have the resources to get another tutor or teacher. She
Yeah.
actually was doing a lot of in-home teaching. She's actually, since then, to your point, she volunteered to work with Cleveland School of the Arts, even though she lives in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And brought a production called Mary Shelley's Frankenstein that she helped create and stand up in Pittsburgh. And our kids and Dr. Miller and the team actually did their own production of Frankenstein after going through the studio experience with my mom and the company.
Well, how nice. Wow. Well, we're going to get to the other stuff now,
Sure.
since I don't want to run out of time. I was watching I love Zoom because it gives me, exposes me to all this wonderful stuff. It's like you can learn and just see people you never would get to see in person. And so there was a Zoom meeting. It was called Education as a Vehicle for Change, or something like that. And the two guests were Angela Davis and Erica Huggins, both former members of the Black Panther Party, and they're activists, authors, educators. And they said something that I thought was really cool. Erica Huggins said, "When we're taught the beauty of our humanity as children, we do not grow up with broken empathy buttons." And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the teacher's role in that quote?
Well, Meryl, that I believe really strongly in social emotional learning for all of our kids. And so I think, and as a district, we've led that work for over a decade before it became kind of in vogue right now that everybody is, quote, doing SEL. First of all, you don't do SEL. It is the way we are. But I think teachers have a very direct responsibility at helping young people really understand themselves, which is part of the SEL skills, and others, another big part of SEL skills, and the way in which we can relate together, work through conflicts, collaborate. So both the constructive, positive, and also the tug of war. And I think that's the empathy button, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it can be and should be done in the presence of content. So you are a language arts teacher. And so I think you can lift these kinds of lessons through discussions of rigorous literature, through essays that students write that allows them to bring their full self and tell their point of view. I am a math teacher. I almost said I am a math teacher. I think you can do that by giving students the opportunity to collectively and productively struggle through finding the pattern of mathematical problems instead of the teacher just writing it on the board and kids beautifully copying it down. So I think it's a really critical role of teachers.
How can you do it through history?
Well, and I think you think about history, we tend to march through a timeline and a story told by the winners, which are white people. But why not have kids really go out and investigate primary source documents and really look for counterpoints of view, or what were the losers in history saying, and we're going to see that in the history that's being created around us right now, that, there's going to be a narrative of what comes out of this from a winner's point of view, but there's a whole lot of primary sources that will still exist from a minority point of view. So every subject, I think, can do this. And I think it also, if we all did this, it would also really strengthen just a really large cultural competence that is missing in so many parts of our city and country.
Yes, and our classrooms.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Something else they said, which I found is fascinating. They said two things. When you attach a consequence to a standardized test, it delegitimizes the test. So I thought that was an interesting statement. And so I'm going to mold that statement into my next question. How do we measure the progress of school districts? Is the state report card the way to do it?
Well, you've known me a lot of years. I do believe that the adults of the organization have to have an appropriate level of accountability. I don't think that the current system works only because, for one primary reason, if you can directly map the success or failure of school districts, quote unquote, by zip code, by color, skin, by poverty, then the system is not measuring what it's intended to measure. If it's that predictable, then you don't actually need the tests, you already know the answers. So, I have been a fan of measuring growth. We have to grow kids, and in our case in Cleveland, we have to grow them further and faster. And even if you look at our progress reports, I'm not performing at the level of the middle and upper middle class suburbs, and I know that. But I'm also very proud to say we're 12%, top 12% of improvement in K through 3 literacy, top 4% of improvement in K 3 reading, and 4th fastest improving graduation rate. And that's
we're going to get into that next, the
right.
improvements.
But the point being, that's what we should measure.
Yes.
Are we moving people out of circumstance, or are we simply measuring circumstance? And I would argue right now, the assessment system largely measures circumstance.
Now the controversy lies in with poverty. How much of growth do you think should be determined by the teacher, and how much of growth can be affected by outside the classroom? So that, I think that's one of the issues, because our children run into so many barriers that really affect their growth, including, are they coming to school? So how do you deal with that?
Look, we know from our own data that teachers will add 12 points in growth on our assessment system over the course of the year, and that in a typical school year, students regress 6 points over the summer, half of what they gained. And so we have ways, and again, I'm a mathematician, we have ways to control for the outside factors. That's what science does when science is being done well. So there are ways to actually measure teacher effect compared to whole effect. The problem, again, is we aren't using those kinds of measures.
How do you do that? What are those ways?
So if you know, for example, that students gain 12 points in the year from teacher effect, but lose 6 points in the summer, and this is a simple version, obviously, then extract out that summer impact and measure the 12 points gained, right? And don't hold the teacher responsible for summer loss and say, well, the student only left with 6 points. Again, that's very simple, but scientists, by design, they're taught to control for other factors to get to the answer they want. It can scientifically be done. It is not being done.
Okay, so obviously you have some of the ways that these things can happen. So talk about the improvements that have occurred based on the science that you're using.
Well, I think first, to just connect the accountability question, having taught in the district before retiring and when I was in leadership roles, I've been here 14 years. You have never heard me say teach to the test. And so the first thing we have to do is teach well, and the test will take care of itself. And and kids will do better if we keep them in rigorous, engaging experiences than if we have stopped teaching because you have to prep for the test. You have to teach the questions you think are going to be on the test. So first of all,
you understand that the consequences of students not doing well on a test is why teachers feel obligated to teach to the test, right?
I understand the paradox. I also fully believe that if we freed ourselves from teaching to the test and actually taught rigorous, group-worthy activities for students to productively struggle through, we would see even better results. And hopefully this pandemic,
state level
it means policy change. Yeah, it means
legislators.
policy change all over the world. And,
Yes,
and
yes.
you know, I've been advocating aggressively through the pandemic that this is our moment to get
Yes.
away from that and get to mastery of content
Yes.
instead of marching through seat time. To your
Yes.
question about progress, pre-pandemic, we are the 12th in the top 12% of school districts in Ohio. There are about 609 of them in growth in reading and math scores on those very tests. It does not mean we're the top 12% in performance because, again, the tests are very directly aligned to circumstance, but we're one of the fastest improving. We are in the top 4% in improvement on K through 3 literacy. That means when our kids are not reading at grade level, we catch them up more effectively than 96% of the districts in Ohio who have kids not at grade level. We're in the top, we are the number 4 fastest improving district on graduation rate. When I took over, it was 52.2%. Today, it's 80.1%. That is a 53% improvement. And more importantly, really, really importantly, our African American students are 5 points higher than their peer group statewide, and our Hispanic students are 5.5 points higher than their peer group statewide, which means if you are a Black or Hispanic child in Cleveland, you are more likely to graduate than if you attended the average school district across Ohio. So I'm really, really proud of that work, particularly because we're 86% people of color in this district.
Okay, now you mentioned the 52% graduation rate before.
In 2011 when I took over.
80 something now?
80.1%.
And you said that's a 53% increase. I think you meant to say a 30.
It's a 27-point increase, which is a 53% gain.
Okay, I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So what would you say is the number one factor that has helped the students improve the way they have? What would you say is the most important factor in that happening?
Well, I think there's a few. We've done a great deal of work to redesign our high schools to provide more mastery-oriented work, more flexible school years. You know, we have schools that are in hospitals now, on GE's campus, in aviation high school. So they're themed to keep students more interested in the things they care about. We've also put in very careful monitoring, and you know, you were a teacher at Kennedy High School. You had to monitor where every child was every quarter, and we put interventions in place for them. I think our curriculum has gotten stronger over the years, and so, you know, that's empowered us to move forward. So I think there's multiple factors, but I would argue that, again, our effort, despite the larger policy environment, to say we're going to focus on mastery of content in group-worthy tasks and having kids authentically demonstrate how that learning was occurring, frees us from trying to teach those tests and get those results.
Okay, so we have, oh, we're good. We're doing good on time. I want to talk about Say Yes.
Yes.
Let's talk about Say Yes. When you talk about improvement, I've always believed that if a child believes that they have a future, then that will affect their present. And it's always been said that because so many children living in poverty don't really feel that they're going to, I have to say it, don't feel they're going to live to be 21, then that sometimes affects how their performance in school, their performance in the streets.
Yep.
So talk about Say Yes.
So Say Yes, when it's fully meeting its potential, because it's very new, will accomplish my second and third goal that I set for myself when I became CEO. The first was to prove that we could improve the state's worst performing district, and we have. But the second was, it doesn't matter if that diploma is the end of the journey. And so we have to provide an opportunity for trade school, 2-year and 4-year school, and the Say Yes scholarship, which is available to any district resident who attends 9th through 12th grade in one of our high schools, pays that tuition. And then the third is so they can go to any public 2-year, 4-year, or trade school in Ohio, plus over 100 private colleges and universities across the country. So really a big deal. And it's in place for 25 years. So the first class has received their scholarship. Actually, the second class is applying now. And so it's a commitment for 25 years. That's important because of the third element, which is all of that can be done, but poverty still creates enormous hurdles for students and families. And so the Say Yes supports that we're putting in place and are now in 43 schools, will be in all schools within the next 2 years, is to block and tackle and remove those barriers of health and mental health issues, legal issues like eviction, which is a big problem in our community, out of school time programming, basic needs. We have the 211 United Way database at our fingertips now to help kids and families. And so the 25 years is for 2 generations, because I want my moms and dads and caregivers to look down to their 6-year-old who they're holding their hand and saying, when you go to college.
Yes.
And I don't want them afraid to say that. But how do you say that to your child if you have no hope of delivering it? And I would also say Yes is a matter of social justice to me. It is both how do we provide the capital? So that's the scholarships, that's the health care, but also the social capital, because this world, this country works on social capital. Who do you know and how can they help you? And our kids and families don't have that kind of access. So people who may not believe that, ask themselves how many times they sent their son or daughter's resume to a friend so that the friend can say, oh, I'll take a look at it. My kids and families don't always have that access.
Yeah.
So the scholarship comes with a mentor volunteer who checks in 2 times a month at minimum in
I
an
love that part.
environment like this. And then in a real world meets face-to-face 3 times a year before they go off to college over the winter break and when they come home. And in the Say Yes support system, the family support specialist provides that connection that I can connect you to resources and supports. The supports are out there, but our families often have no way to get the help that they need because they don't know how to navigate the system. So it's both how do we provide the capital, but also the social capital that a middle income, middle class community already enjoys.
So in a state in which the way they fund the schools has been found unconstitutional 4 times, 1997, 2000, 2001, 2002, mainly because of an over-reliance on property taxes. Even though it says in our Ohio Constitution that all of our 1.7 million children will have a thorough and efficient school system, you're still making it work. It's going to work for our kids. We cannot wait on the legislature to do what they were ordered to do years ago. We have to make sure that we're doing what we can for our students right now, which is another reason why I ran for the state school board. We can't wait on people who don't have the will to make it work for our children, especially our children of color.
Yeah, and I've told people that this problem started long before the constitutionality was ruled on. In 1976, Ohio put in a rule called House Bill 920 that says school districts, when they pass a levy locally, it does not keep up with inflation. It never collects more than the dollar it collected in its first year of collection. And what that causes is this straight line and then cliff when school districts have to ask for money. I was 6 years old when that was put in place. In 1997, a constitutionality issue was called, and it was found unconstitutional for the first of those 4 times. I was 27 years old. I'm 50 and still waiting for a solution. So I think we have to do 2 things. One is we have to do everything we can locally, and we are, and Clevelanders have been incredibly generous, even though we're the single highest childhood poverty city in the country. Mayor Jackson often says people are paying a tax they can't afford. So we have to do what we have to do locally, be very careful with our money, ask only when we need it. But we also have to advocate aggressively at the state level, and you know that I have. And it is a matter of will, as you said. It's also a matter of, to fix the problem means you actually got to have the money to fund what is right. The irony for me, or the disappointment for me, is pre-COVID, the economy was there. We had the resources, the state had the resources, and Representatives Cupp and Patterson were bringing forward a fair funding formula that I was actively engaged in, that if the legislature had the will, would be in place and fundable pre-COVID. So we have to, like you are at the state board, my job is to both make sure I make it work for our community, but also fight for every dollar our community deserves.
Yeah, and the good news is that Representative Cupp is now the Speaker of the House, and we have House Bill 305, which they're taking a look at. I heard that they're going to try to do something with it before the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but you're like, yeah, right. But you know, there's always hope. There's always hope. So let's
Well,
move
and we
into,
also,
go
I
ahead.
just want to hit a couple quick other things that I
Because I
think the
want to
public should
segue
know.
into issue 68 since we're talking about funding. So I want to cover that. I don't want to run out of time and say, oh my goodness, we didn't talk about that, because that House
Can I
Bill
take just
920 forces districts to go back to the people over and over again for levies.
Can I just add one thing before we move
Yes,
there? Because
yes,
I want people to know that we're not coming to the public and saying, well, since others aren't doing their job, you pay.
yeah,
So I want the public to know that the Cleveland School District was one of the districts that joined a multi-state, multi-district lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Education, who tried to take Title I poverty aid away from poor children in
yes.
public and private schools and send it to wealthier schools. And we won. And that protected for our district about $2.5 million. I also want the public
That's
to
I
know
say
that
that was Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, just so everybody knows. And the money
Right.
was sent to students in private schools, basically, instead of being going to children of poverty.
Right. Well, and not only children of poverty in public schools, but it took it from children of poverty in all schools, including private.
Yes.
The second is that on Tuesday night, the board voted to continue litigation against actually the state board, the Department of Education, because of a lawsuit pending all the way back to 2005, where the state did not fairly fund Cleveland. And Franklin County found that the state was guilty and owes the district $13.7 million. The state is appealing that decision, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure that our kids get the money they deserve and not simply put it on the back of taxpayers.
And that was along with, I think, Toledo and
Dayton as well.
Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, you know where I stand on that, but I just can't say anything right now.
Yeah, I'm not convicting you, but the suit has to, by law, sue the
Yes.
state board and the department.
Yes.
And we're going to keep fighting this. We've already been to the Supreme Court once on this issue, Ohio Supreme Court, and we'll go all the way back again if we have to. But I will not go to taxpayers for issue 68 and say to them, well, I'm not willing to fight for $14 million. You pay it.
Mhm.
We're out there fighting.
Okay, so tell us about issue 68.
So issue 68 is a renewal of the existing 15 mil levy that we passed for the first time in 2012 and the second time in 2016, plus a small 5 mil increase that costs the average homeowner in Cleveland $7 a month. And that increase is the direct result of that House Bill 920 that I told you about.
Mhm.
So for 8 years, we've been collecting the same amount of money with no inflation, even though inflation in Cleveland has gone up 1.7% per year, or about 18%. Now we're at a point where we simply can't make that money go as far as it needs to go without an increase. People have said to me, well, why would you ask in a pandemic, which is a very reasonable question. And the answer is we had no choice. If we did not go to voters, the levy would expire on December 31st as our New Year's present, and we would cut $66 million a year out of our budget. That's 12% of our budget. The second question they ask is, well, why would you ask for an increase? And the answer there is, it's the honest thing to do. If I were out right now saying, just renew the levy, issue 68 is a renewal, it won't cost you anything more, and people passed it, I would then in November be going to the board to cut the budget to make it balanced for the year, because without keeping up with inflation, we just can't stretch it any further. And so it's a 15 mil renewal and a 5 mil increase that'll cost the average homeowner in Cleveland $7 a month.
Now, I have to bring this up. There's an organized effort against the levy. I haven't seen that in the past. And that's really unfortunate, because we're talking about our children. And so there's one thing, I received their mailing. There's this one thing that they say, and I want you to address it. They said, we can't afford an extra $90 million for 10 years. What do you understand what they're saying there?
Well, so it's a misrepresentation of the tax issue. So it's not an extra $90 million. The total collection per year will be $90 million, 67 million that we're already collecting, 66, 67. And that 90 million would be only if everybody paid their taxes, which they don't. We collect about 88%. So it's actually about an extra 20 million a year. But big numbers are scary. So why not say an extra 90 million instead of being more transparent and honest? But the whole opposition campaign lacks credibility in my belief, because they have gone through painstaking care to make sure that no one can know who they are. Yep. We can't debate them. We can't ask questions. We can't interview them. You will not have them on your program because you don't know who they are.
Believe me, if I knew who they were, they'd be here.
Well, and I don't mind credible, constructive concerns and criticisms. I know what we're asking. For example, some developers and in a Cranes article named themselves and named their concern. That's fair because we can talk about it. But this hidden dark money opposition, it just violates everything that we believe in, that I believe in, in fair elections where we're transparent. We know who's paying for it. For example, we know that there is a law firm in Columbus that created this company, so to speak, and that their mail's coming from Virginia. Now, don't know why, don't know who, but our mail is coming from me, and it's coming from printers in Cleveland, and we're telling you the truth.
Mm-hmm. And I just think that with House Bill 920, and we're not even going to talk about the money that comes from the school district for charter schools and for vouchers. And I understand that parents want different choices, but that money should be directly funded from the state of Ohio. It should not.
Well, and we should lift up the Cleveland Scholarship Program, our voucher program. Mm-hmm. Our district pays a significantly higher portion of the scholarship than any other district in the urban environment. If we were paying based on our poverty, we would be paying 6%. Right now, we pay about 23%. So that's costing our taxpayers money because of the Cleveland Scholarship Program, which is far worse than the Ed Choice.
Scholarship Program, you mean the voucher program that allows children to leave Cleveland Public Schools and attend religious and private schools.
That's right. And it's far worse than the Ed Choice program that you're hearing a lot more controversy about impacting other districts. We are significantly impacted. And that's part of why we have to come back to voters, is because our voters are spending more money on our voucher program than the voters of Columbus, Cincinnati, Toledo, Dayton, Akron, Youngstown. So those voucher programs matter to us. They influence our budget.
Yes. So I'm asking all of you, if you are Cleveland resident, please, please, please support issue 68. Our students, they deserve it.
And residents should know it's the very last thing on your ballot. You have to go all the way to the bottom of the ballot, and you should. There are a lot of important issues between the president and issue 68. But even if you don't, jump all the way to the bottom, and then that's where you vote for issue 68.
Thank you for saying that, but please vote the whole ballot. Okay, let's move into remote learning. COVID-19, the internet has gone from being a luxury to a necessity. And the first thing, I heard you say that all of your children have devices and the internet now. Is that correct?
All of our children should have devices and internet. If any child doesn't, they need to reach their school. We have bought well over 37,000 devices. So that's iPads, tablets, Chromebooks, laptops.
And how many students do you have?
37,000.
Okay.
So that's one for everyone. We're still buying. We want a 5% overrun because devices do get lost, stolen, or broken. And so we want to trade them in quickly. We've bought 20,000 hotspots and are paying for a year's worth of internet subscription, so that if families don't have internet, they can have a hotspot or sometimes multiple, depending on how many children they have. If they have internet, but it's not strong enough, we can add those hotspots. So we have taken the country's worst connected city in America, which is another just bad badge of honor for Cleveland. Yes. And we have connected 37,000 kids and their families, and are working very closely with Digital C, a nonprofit here in Cleveland, to make that permanent. I am not going to be the superintendent that goes out at the end of the pandemic and say, Mrs. Johnson, I need that hotspot back. We need to get our community permanently connected. This is a utility, not a luxury.
That is such a wonderful goal. Talk about your homeless students. About how many homeless students would you say are in the district now, and how have you managed to have them connected?
So we have about 1,100 homeless students who are identifiable. And the reason I always make that point is many of our families double up. They'll stay at Auntie's house on the couch, and they don't think of that as homelessness, but it actually is. So we have 1,100 students who are actually accessing shelters and other forms of support. Fortunately, we've really worked aggressively to support them. All of those students have their own devices. They have internet connectivity. We've worked with the shelters to create learning pods and have actually adjusted schedules for them. We've done a ton around making sure that they have sufficient meals, because, you know, breakfast and lunch was always on the district, but homeless families not only need breakfast and lunch, they need dinner too. And so does mom and dad. So we've really done a lot to make sure we have food assistance in place. We even have used Instacart to send food to people in cases where we have worked with the shelters for homework help and, you know, those sorts of things. So we need to get families in homes, and I got to tell you, unless we get more relief from the federal government, that population is going to grow, not shrink. But feel like we are really working closely with the community that helps shelter homeless families to make sure they're taken care of.
So the pandemic really put a spotlight on just how important our public schools are, because suddenly they're like, how do we feed our children? That was amazing how you set up these places. Talk just briefly, when the pandemic hit, how did you set up? I think it was 22 sites you had for children to pick us. I want the people out there to know the kinds of things that are going on in the Cleveland Public Schools.
Sure. So the first thing that I would want people to understand is, if you are a parent and you send your child to school and you're living in poverty, 2 meals a day, that's 10 meals a week for each child, are taken care of. So when the world shut down, you went from having to take care of 5 dinners a day to 15 meals a day. That's a heavy lift when you don't have the resources.
Mm-hmm.
So we set up food centers in 22 schools across the district. We opened them to any child, no matter whether they're a Cleveland student, a charter student, a parochial student, and we sent home meals every day for kids and families that needed them. Over the summer, we transitioned, and now we're operating nearly every district site in 2 different meal programs. So for convenience sake, if you want to come one time a week, you can come to 17 high school sites and pick up the meals for every child for the whole week. And
Wow.
That way you only have to come once.
Wow.
If you prefer more fresh options, and, you know, because for a week you have to have more kind of preserved options.
Yeah.
If you want more fresh options, you can come to any K-8 school site and pick up a meal for each day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And on Tuesday, you get double meals because we close to clean and sanitize on Wednesday. And again, you don't have to be a Cleveland student. You can go to the nearest school, whether you're a charter, a non-public, or a Cleveland student. We're going to feed you. It's just critical. And I think it really shines a light on what we all knew. And I want to really say this aloud, because people have tried to say, oh, I didn't realize. Yes, we did. We've known that this community is in deep poverty.
Mm-hmm.
We've known that people need food. But now we can't pretend and look the other way. This pandemic has forced us to see that, internet, and lots of other disparities that are deep and long-standing in our community and across the country.
Mm-hmm. Now, remote learning, we know it's complicated and everything, but we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to talk about on your State of the Schools with the City Club. You said it's not a pause, but a reset. How would you like for things to change? What's the new thing? What's the new norm that you'd like to see?
So I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes from Audre Lorde.
I'm so glad, because I have it written down here.
Yeah. So Audre Lorde was a feminist and activist for all people. And she was famous for saying, for the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And the reason I say that is, if we just put systems back the way they were, systems that were designed first for white and not even white poor, but white middle and upper class to be educated, ultimately included
by white people.
By white people, ultimately included poor white people up to a certain grade, typically 8th grade, were forced to start taking care of people of color through desegregation laws, Supreme Court cases, Brown versus Board of Education. This city in 1976 started mandatory busing 4 years after it had failed in Detroit. So if we put systems that were constructed from the white, wealthy centric point of view and then have been forced to adapt, not want to, we're not going to do better. And we also still run on 180 days of a school year counts for learning. And actually, on the state board now it's even minutes. Well, as an English teacher that students had varying degrees of learning accomplished in 180 days. And a D- got you your Carnegie unit to move on in your forced march to your diploma. What I want us to use this pandemic for, and remote learning can help us do this, is to say, how do we have mastery of content? What are the content benchmarks that kids need to learn? And what is the window of time we should expect that? And jettison this rigid seat time. So I'll give you one example. Class of 25 kids, your class at Kennedy. As well as I did as a math teacher, that there are some number of students, I call them our stuck stars. They're bored, they're waiting to move on. They need to move on, but you're helping the rest of the class.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you have 5 or 10 reluctant learners. They're not going to put their hand up and say, Mrs. Johnson, I don't understand, because they're not going to be embarrassed in front of their peers. And there's probably 5 who are right where you want them.
Mm-hmm.
What if in a mastery environment, you said to Devon, who just joined us, Devon, I'm going to give you this asynchronous content. You keep working. You don't have to wait. My class size just got down to 15.
I'm asynchronous for our listeners, please.
So asynchronous may be a project you gave them, an extra novel that you had them read, an essay, an independent work that keeps Devon moving and the 10 other Devons.
Mm-hmm.
You make sure that Eric gets, whatever he needs, get him on his way, and then your class size gets down to 10-ish kids that you can really focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how much more we would do for Black students, Hispanic students, students with disabilities, English language learners, if we didn't just trap kids and teachers into groups of 25. There is no science that says you can only learn American literature from 8:03 to 9:02 Monday through Friday. So if we use mastery learning as our base and then design for that, we can design a system that's better for everybody.
And the research has already been done.
The science is clear. The science is absolutely clear.
Okay, I'm going to end on this question and give me a quick answer. What's the best part about your job?
The kids. The other day, I got a video from our School of the Arts, and it was our dance company doing their remote dance rehearsal. And there was one young woman who's dancing around her bed because that's the space she had. And I was practically in tears. I miss the kids so much.
Yeah.
It's the kids.
Yeah. Well, Devon Jones is back, and I hate to have to say this on the video, but I don't see a record button to stop the recording, so it disappeared. So I'm showing my unprofessionalism here, but I don't know how to stop the recording, Devon, so you have to help me. There's no,
so down at the bottom next to your share screen button, there should be a record next to that.
It's not there anymore.
Okay.
So this is going to go on and on forever.
No.
We'll have to end it. We'll just have to end it. And
when you end it, it will start processing the file.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just tell you, because I made this mistake, don't close that window at all until Devon tells you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you end, whoever is controlling the meeting, when you end it, it will automatically stop the recording and capture it. But then when the pop-up on your screen pops up, make sure you know what to do with it. I learned that the hard way.
Okay, so I should end it then. I see an end red button. Should I push that, Devon?
Yes.
So you're going to be editing this recording anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. You can edit all this out of there. Okay.
If
Look,
guys
thank you both. I really appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Eric. So glad to have you with us. So, I mean,
Take
feel
good
free
care.
to leave so we can just kind of fool around with this. Thanks,
Okay.
Eric.
Be
All
safe.
right.
Yep, thank you. Take good care.
All
Yes,
right.
sir. How did that go?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was really, really, really good.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna call you on the phone real quick. So when you exit out, we could download it.
But what do I do now?
Hold on. Say it again.
Do you know how to scan that stuff?
No, I know how to work that printer at all.
Okay, now you're doing it.
Okay. You got it for an hour?
Huh?
How long you up there for, like an hour? What?
So it's still recording.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna tell
Okay,
me how to
so
stop it?
I'm about to call you on the phone, and what I want you to do is press, let me see if I can end the meeting for all. Here, let me see if I know how to, I'm gonna try to do it. Record. It should, at the bottom, next to your share screen, it should say pause, stop, and recording.
Nope. I'm going to say it's next to the share screen. It says reactions. And then it says more. Want me to click more to see what's there?
Yeah.
Oh, more says stop recording.
Yeah.
I guess I should have hit that first, but I didn't know. So I'll stop the recording. Okay?
Mm-hmm.